And start now. First of all, I would like to welcome you on behalf of the FOSTA team, the FIT4RRI team. Many thanks for joining us today. So my name is Helene Brinken, and I work for FOSTA and for FIT4RRI, both projects at the University of Göttingen in Germany. And I will start with giving you a bit of context, so explaining a little bit what is RRI and open science and what does FIT4RRI do. And afterwards, we will have Luciano de Andrea from Knowledge and Innovation in Italy, who will elaborate on the critical trends shaping science, which are the results from our project work. And I just want to mention in the beginning that you can add all questions you have into the chat, and we will have time after our talks to answer them. And if there are any technological issues, for example, that you cannot hear us, please let us also know via the chat. So first of all, we have this acronym FIT4RRI, which stands for Fostering Improved Training Tools for Responsible Research and Innovation. So what does responsible research and innovation mean? We can say that science and technology can create a risk and ethical dilemmas. So RRI seeks to bring research and innovation to the open in order to anticipate the consequences and to involve society. So societal actors such as researchers, citizens, and many more work together during a responsible R&I process to better align the values, needs and expectation of society with the processes and outcomes from the research. So in short, we can say that we want to involve all actors that are affected by our research at all levels to minimize the potential negative impact research and innovation may have. So there are 6 key criteria that are involved in an RRI process. So we have gender equality to ensure gender equality in the research content and processes. Then we want to add an ethical dimension to our research. We want to ensure open access to scientific results. And with science education, we want to enhance formal and informal science education inside the research institutions and also in society. We have public engagement, so we aim at broadly engage the society and research and innovation activities. And we have governance, which aims to create governance settings and models to enable the other 5 key criteria. In 2015, the European Commission also added the criteria of sustainability to support sustainable growth, and the criteria social justice and inclusion to prevent exclusion of particular groups. So you can see here on the right-hand side that there are different process dimensions that we want to include in a responsible research and innovation process. So first of all, we want to be diverse and inclusive, which means to involve a wide range of stakeholders as early as possible to strengthen democracy and also to get different perspectives. Second, if you do RRI research, you should be anticipative and reflective, which means that you envision impacts on the underlying assumptions, conclusions, and values. And third, to be open and transparent, so that you communicate your results, your methods, and conclusions to enable public scrutiny and a dialogue. And the 4th point is to be responsive and adaptive to change. So this means to be able to modify your modes of thought and also your behavior, or maybe even organizational structures, because of or in response to changing perspective, changing knowledge, and changing circumstances. So all in all, we can say that we cannot predict the consequences, but we can anticipate, reflect, and engage, and act to minimize the potential negative impact of science and technology. So this is in short what RRI means, and I also have some definitions of open science for you. So we can say that open science is the practice of science, so in such a way that others can collaborate and contribute, because all research processes such as methods and nodes and data are available, and they also, the terms under which they are available allow the reuse, redistribution, and reproduction. So it is the movement to make research data dissemination accessible to all levels of an acquiring society. So I have here for you this small cartoon with the 4 fundamental rules of open science, which comes from the Open Science Training Handbook. So open science means to be transparent, accessible, available, and free, and reusable for research. So now I would like to tell you a little bit more about the FIT4RRI project. So this project is EU-funded and is coordinated by the Sapienza University. And we come from the assumption that there is a gap between the role RRI and open science could play and which they actually play in research funding and performing organizations. So what we aim is to mainstream RRI and open science through transforming them into a set of strategies and means. So in simpler words, it means that we focus on 2 key factors to bridge this gap and activate institutional change by developing training tools and developing governance settings and strategies. Our approach to create and develop these training tools and governance settings is to first of all to understand RRI and open science better. So we analyze the trends, barriers, drivers, and the interest and values in the research landscape. Secondly, and that is also the stage where we are now at the project, we observe RRI and open science in action. So 4 of our partners conduct co-creation experiments in their institutions to see how RRI and open science actually work and how they are influenced and what is needed. And the next step, the last step, will be to develop training tools and guidelines for governance settings, building on this basis of analysis and testing. So the activities that have been done so far has been a content map and collection of RRI and open science training material that is already out there. So my colleagues created an integrated RRI and open science taxonomy, which you can see here. And all the training materials we collected are available on the Foster Open Science portal. The next steps were a mapping and benchmarking exercise. So with the help of a literature review and the benchmarking, we analyzed the diffusion and adaptation of RRI, science and research funding and performing organizations to map this general trends and barriers and drivers. So this is the aspect that Luciano will cover in a few minutes and will talk about in more detail. And the second aspect we worked on was a sectoral diagnosis. So we did a literature review and sectoral workshop to also analyze the variability of RRI and open science in different research and disciplinary sectors and in different national contexts. So this is it from my side, and now I would like to hand over to Luciano. I will stop my screen sharing now and give Luciano a couple of 1 minute to start screen sharing and to turn on the audio. So so far we cannot hear you, but we can see your screen. Can you unmute you, please? Luciano, we cannot hear you yet. What you need to do is to, on the top of the, okay, we just need a second to figure this out.
Okay, the problem is sharing now. Sharing is paused. I don't know, resume sharing. Okay.
We can also see your screen, but I think you need to reopen the slides. I think you closed it.
Yeah. Wait, I'm trying to manage the problem now. And
Luciano,
okay.
just
yes,
stop share screening first.
Yes, but
you can stop on the top.
Yes, I stop share.
Okay. Perfect. Now you can open the slide.
Okay, again. Okay, thanks. And I'm looking for now. But where are they? Okay. Wait a moment, please.
No problem. Okay, first open the slides in your screen.
Yes.
Then after that, you start sharing the screen when you have the slides.
Okay, I have to again share.
Perfect. Okay, now
stop sharing and okay, this one. Are you able to see now?
Yes.
Perfect.
And now you can maybe click via full screen. Perfect. Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry for these problems. Good morning to everyone. The title of my presentation is Critical Trends Shaping Science. I could also add a sub-heading, if you want. What about RRI in relation to them? The aim of this contribution is, in fact, focused on responsible research and innovation, as Helen said. And the attempt is trying to explain why RRI is less widespread and embedded in research organization than it was expected. And FIT4RRI was exactly just conceived to understand why and how to cope with such an issue. We try to make an analysis based on a large literature review, set of focus groups, and a benchmarking exercise. But I don't want to focus on them, but I will try to summarize what we understood in this regard. So the contents of my presentation, at a glance, are organized in three steps. The first step is a critical analysis of RRI, followed by a contextualization of RRI in relation to especially the transformation affecting science and science-society relationships. And the third step is proposing, if you want, an alternative or a deeper interpretation of RRI after the contextualization process. So, step one, a critical analysis of RRI. As many of you know, there are many definitions of RRI, each time emphasizing a mix of different components. Thus, RRI can be understood as a mutual responsiveness between innovators and social actors, responsibility for the future impacts of research and innovation, or the alignment to RRI and of RRI, research and innovation process and its outcome to values, needs, expectation of the European society, or the issue of reflexivity, that is, reflecting on the moral acceptability of new technology and innovation. More or less, practically speaking, RRI is viewed as a sort of an umbrella concept, including, as Helen said before, different keys and conceptual, dimensional element, processual elements. The keys are very well known: open access, gender equality, education, public engagement, ethical issues, governance. As far as the dimensions are concerned, there are many that different authors propose, such as responsiveness, inclusiveness, anticipation, reflexivity, care. So there are a wide range of definition and a wide range of interpretation of RRI, but at the same time, some common elements seems to be shared by the different views on RRI. The first one, according to me, is an hidden assumption, that is, science has been under-responsible or even irresponsible so far towards society. That is, there is an interpretation of the past of the history of science, the last decades. A second element, according to me, is a prescriptive approach. That is, in the majority of cases, RRI is conceived as something to be adopted because it is right to do it. There is a moral constraint, there is an ethical pressure for adopting a responsible research approach. A third element is what we can refer to as a focus. That is, the focus of responsible research and innovation is mainly science-society relations. That is, the relationship between scientists, scientific institutions, research organization, research funding organization, with the external actors. Obviously, innovators, obviously, governmental agencies, but also the public at large, NGOs, the local authorities, and other concerned actors with science and technology. And a fourth element I found, I believe that there is producing a common ground for the different views of RRI is the idea that we have to go beyond the so-called ivory tower model. That is the model shaping science as social institution for centuries. The ivory tower model is very well known. That is, the idea is that science has to be separated and largely autonomous from society, from religion, from politics. The ivory tower model was thought for making science possible, protected for external powers. Well, the emerging RRI model thinks science as fully embedded in society, fully connected with political, economic, and societal dynamics. In the ivory tower model, science is seen as not involved with facts, with worries, with practicalities of society. While in RRI model, science is seen as sensitive towards and responsible for matching the expectations of people, the needs, the worries, and the problems of society or the different stakeholders. It is fully engaged in solving the problems of society. In the ivory tower model, science is based on forms of self-direction, both for what concerns the self-organization and for what concerns the contents of science. While the RRI model sees science as based on forms of co-direction, co-working, interaction with external so-called lay actors. Finally, science under ivory tower model is seen as not involved the actual implications and use of its outputs. While in the RRI model, science, and especially scientists and research organizations, are directly or should be directly concerned with the actual implications and the use of the scientific knowledge they produce or the technology they contribute to develop. Our observation allowed to identify some potentials of and some barriers to RRI. The potential of RRI, that is a real powerful concept. Also because of its interpretative flexibility. It could be interpreted in a different way. RRI is a concept that could be used in a different way. is also a trendy concept. In different other spheres of life, social life, we have this reference to responsibility. So we have the responsible eating, responsible religion, responsible mobility, responsible lifestyles. So the reference to responsibility is particularly trendy and attractive and appealing. And for this reason, RRI at the first glance is able to attract and to mobilize people. I refer here to the concept of RRI, but I can add also the concept of open science that is taught in the same direction to show a science, to imagine a science that is against the ivory tower model, open to the input coming from societies, and able to provide input to the other spheres of society. Very appealing and very trendy concept. The barriers we found is that RRI is little known, is conceptually vague, and is exactly because of variably interpreted, is very difficult to apply. There are policy-oriented interpretation, ethical interpretation, personal commitment-based interpretation. There are also some interpretation we found, we can say the déjà vu syndrome, the idea that RRI is already done, is already implemented, is already part of the business as usual activity of university and research organization, overlooking in this way the impact of RRI. There are also strong institutional barriers to trigger RRI, especially there is no rules, there are no institutional units or spaces for supporting and promoting a responsible view of science. Finally, there are also cultural and societal barriers which have an impact because of there are different disciplinary cultures, professional cultures, different views of science, scientists, and so forth. So, a set of questions I would like to pose now. That is, why now? That is, why have the concept and the debate on RRI been developing just in the last decade and not before, for example? Which is the theoretical background of RRI and which is the context of changes which RRI is immersed in? So I take the second step, step 2, a contextualization of RRI. I believe that the theoretical background of RRI is based on a set of interpretive models of changes affecting science developed between the 80s and the 90s, very well known. I'm referring to the Mode 1, Mode 2 model, the post-academic science model, the triple helix approach, the post-normal science, the innovation system models, and there are other many approaches to the changes affecting science in the last part of the last century and the beginning of this century. They are different, but they are showing some general trends altogether. First, science is becoming a multi-actor process involving many lay actors. That is not only an affair of scientists. There is an increasing political steering on research and innovation, and the focus is increasingly on social and economic benefits of research and innovation, so more on applied research than on fundamental research. At the same time, a decreasing authority of an increasing people's distrust in research and innovation can be observed. This is consequently linked to an increasing demand for accountability and public scrutiny of research process and research products. And another aspect observed by the different models is that boundaries inside and outside science, for example, boundaries among disciplines, boundaries among roles and responsibilities, among actors, even among the different kind of knowledge, scientific knowledge, popular knowledge, non-Western knowledge, etc., are increasingly blurring. For understanding this change observed in science, according to me, we need to broaden a little bit the framework. In fact, changes occurring in science, in research and innovation, can be understandable only recognizing these changes as a part of a general shift. And this shift usually is referred to as the shift from modernity to late modernity or post-modernity or liquid society or post-industrial society. There are many, many terms. And this shift is affecting all social institutions of modernity. For example, the politics, for example, the state structure, for example, religions. And this shift can be understood as a modification in general, very roughly, in the balance between what in sociology is referred to as social structure on the one side and agency on the other side. Whereas social structures refers to the so-called dominant patterns of action and dominant patterns of social relationship, also a dominant pattern in thinking and in belief. So social structure can be considered as the social norms, the dominant behavioral patterns, for example, the languages usually adopted in the social relationships, or the cultural views, the dominant cultural views. Agency, on the other side, refers to the capacity of people to think and to act, at least to a certain extent, more autonomously from social structures, while trying to either change them or to prevent their change. That is, agency refers to, if you want, the individual's freedom to act freely, relatively freely, from the influence of social structures. Well, this concept allows us to see what is happening very roughly. On the one side, in modern mass society, that is the society that developed up to the 60s or the 70s of the last centuries, social structures were particularly strong, were able to limit meaningfully the individual's agency, which were embedded, the individual's agency, in intermediate organization and ideologies. People, owner, were part of given organization, given social structure, families, groups, classes, and social structures were represented by the social institution of modernity, like politics, like science, like religion, like the state, and so forth. So in modern mass society, adopting unconventional behaviors and unconventional ideas was difficult and socially risky for the individuals. On the contrary, we are living in the so-called late modern society, in which different factors, such as the increasing access to education, to goods, to rights, to mobility, to personal technologies, are allowing ourselves, individuals, to express a change-oriented, or anyway, to be more autonomous agency, opposing or neglecting social structures. So, to a certain sense, we are freer than in the past. And in fact, one of the problems we have now is no longer that adopting unconventional behaviors, but rather than defining which are the conventional behaviors and ideas, because everyone tends to adopt different lifestyles, different beliefs, different approach to life, and different behavioral patterns. So if you want, the main output of this shift, which is still occurring, is the diminishing capacity of social structure and the social institutions embedding this social structure to shape social life. So I arrive to science again, because this shift is leading, is becoming social institutional modernity, science included, suffer, to face with some critical transformations that is already, we notice in science, diminishing authority, social decreasing social status, declining and increasingly uncertain access to resources, increasing public indifference, disaffection, distrust, destandardization and fragmentation of internal mechanisms of this social institution, the lack of internal unity. For example, science is no longer a unitary fix. All in all, we can say that these changes are making science and the other social institutions of modernity socially weaker and much more difficult to manage. What is curious to say and to observe that while there are many observers highlighting that the changes occurring in politics, for example, are endangering democracies, or the changes occurring in the labor system are endangering the labor rights, very few people are discussing about the fact that it's possible that the changes occurring in research and innovation are endangering science. That is, the capacity of science to function, to produce high quality products, to produce reliable outcomes, to make advancement in the path of research. And this is a key point, according to me, because there is a very large scientific literature overlooked or even ignored by RRI experts, or in general by RRI literatures, saying that there are many changes affecting science and especially the intimate mechanism of science. I provide some example only. There is a literature showing that there is a hyper competition, an accelerated pace in the research process, leading to some forms of distortions of the research process. For example, an increased number of frauds, low risk research, the tendency of produce redundant papers to make careers. There are a structural shrinking of research funds in the context of increasing cost of research activities, driving to competitive access to research funds with a diminishing rate of success, or leading to a sort of delocalization of lab work. Many activities related to the lab work are made now in emerging countries, no longer in the United States, but in China, for example. There is a task diversification occurring inside the research organizations. There are many tasks now to accomplish: research, teaching, administrative work, search for funds, peer review, science communication. And the impact is a decreasing time devoted to scientific work. There is an increasing staffing of research organization, which is combined with a growing use of non-permanent workers, like PhD students, for example, postdocs, mainly paid through research grants, the so-called soft grants, soft money. There is consequently a segmentation and polarization of the staff on the basis of age, on contractual status, leading to, for example, an overexploitation, overtraining of young researchers, decreasing quality of teaching, changes in the lab relations, modification in the research identity, the idea that university or research is a community of peers is disappearing. There is an increasing mobility of researchers with impacts on the quality of living and on gender equality. There is also a decreasing quality of research outputs that has been observed by many observers, mirrored by, for example, the crisis of reproducibility of scientific data. According to various sources, 60 to 80% of laboratory data are not reproducible. The production of redundant or irrelevant publication, the increasing diffusions of malpractice. And again, there is a decreasing reliability of research assessment or questionable adoption of research assessment methods, due to the diminishing quality of peer review combined with the questionable use of quantitative indicators and rankings. There is a governance shift with an enlarging adoption of entrepreneurial models leading to a high diversification of governance approach. And finally, there is an increasing openness of research institutions toward external actors with beneficial but also risky impact on the life of research organization. All these changes are not necessarily negative, but they are critical because they are open to uncertain results. These lead to the last step, an interpretation of RRI. Summing up, the context is that there is a transition in science. These changes are already modifying the way in which research organizations work, and they are often not perceived at all or not properly managed. These changes are affecting not only science-society relations, but also the intimate mechanisms of science, the internal organization of research work, laboratory division, and so forth. And these changes are critical, as I say, in the sense that they both endanger science, but open to new opportunities for making science in a different and perhaps most effective way, more adapted to a new societal context. So RRI in this context could be seen as one of the policy reactions to the transition of science. Unfortunately, RRI is still a feeble policy framework for different reasons that I already explained. And the signal of it is the lack of knowledge about RRI, lack of interest, lack of action, perception of RRI often as a superstructure, something that something new to do, a set of obligations for the researcher, or the presence of cultural and institutional barriers. But at the same time, from FIT4RRI emerge also many cases showing that RRI could have major impacts on research organization. And in my last three slides, I would like to dwell upon a little about some orientations making RRI perhaps more effective. The point A, is that shifting from a prescriptive to a problem-solving approach to RRI. That is, RRI should be implemented not only because it is right, okay, it's right, but especially because it is useful to solve the problems that research and the research organization are already facing and are worried about. So the point B is using RRI for facing all the changes affecting science. There is not only a problem of external relation, the relation between researchers and lay people, or research organization and external entities. RRI could be used also for facing the domestic affairs, the intimate mechanism of research that are in a critical condition. So the way in which scientific knowledge is produced, and this is important for taking these changes seriously. Point C, it's important to see RRI not as one-size-fits-all solution. It could be a sort of a source of inspiration, is a stock of knowledge, is a cultural background, is a community of people working on reforming the approach to science. However, in itself, RRI does not exist. It exists only when someone starts to use RRI and start to use RRI to manage a transformation of research and innovation as they manifest themselves in a specific given time, in a specific given space, that is, in a given research organization. This means that each research organization should develop a tailored version and have specific RRI profile, starting from the analysis of how RRI could be helpful for them for solving problems they have, for saving time. Point D is focusing on actors. In a society like ours, a mere normative approach to RRI doesn't work at all. Norms, protocols, guidelines are absolutely important, but they should be backed, should be applied, and should evolve over time only if you involve people. You involve the passions and the engagement of people, the interest of people. And the key point is understanding who are the actors to be involved each time. The E point is consider RRI as a process, not a project. RRI is aimed at producing institutional change inside the research organization. But this institutional change cannot be approached as a simple project to be implemented. Rather, an institutional change is a complex process to be developed, involving people, facing with resistance, overcoming barriers, combining conflicting interests, overcoming social constraints. So it's a social process. And we cannot have a control over this process. We can try to drive it, but not to determine it. For this reason, there is also F point, that is introducing monitoring systems, that is for monitoring changes, understanding how the transitional process affecting science development over time is absolutely necessary and should be a primary need for research organization, also in order to modify their own approach to RRI over time. And finally, point G, avoiding an ideological view of RRI. RRI may also disappear in the future as formula, as term. Probably this will happen in the next framework program. But the problems RRI is facing will remain. So it's necessary to be pragmatic and continue to see research to be approached in a different way for solving the problems research is facing in this moment. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Many thanks, Luciano. So now we have time for questions. If you have any, please type them in the chat and we are happy to answer them. I'm also sharing the report on the literature in the chat, which is available on Zenodo. And some more resources. So I'll just give you a couple of more minutes to see if you have any questions. And of course, the recording of this webinar will be made available. So if you have a microphone, you can also unmute yourself and ask us directly, of course.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you, Luciano. I was writing down that people could write down the questions if they have no microphone, or they can speak if they wish to. It seems that some people don't have any questions. Anyway, if you do have a question later on, you can always contact us to our email. And if there is no further, one question here. How can we try to make RRI more or less vague?
Well, the question is, according to me, related to the contextualization of RRI. That is, the first point to understand is that our research organizations are affected by changes, and that our research organizations are already changing. The second point is understanding which are the impacts of this change, and if these changes, as they are desirable, can be driven in a better way. And at that point, we can start thinking about the usefulness of RRI. For making an example, we are training a huge amount of PhD students for working, for making research in our labs. The great majority of them is not destined to continue scientific career because they are no longer the permanent position for them. So we are fostering them with a passion for research. And at the same time, we know very well that they will be, after 10 years, for example, put out of scientific career development. They have to find out different works, and they are not prepared to do that. So, for example, this is not, or it is, an ethical question for research organizations. It's a problem to deal with. Is this also a problem related to gender discrimination? Because the great majority of people which are out of the research, scientific careers are women, because they have many other things to do. They have to manage their family, and in the research context as well, they are are discriminated in a certain sense for different reasons, bias, male-dominated view of science, and so forth. So if we start thinking about how our research organization works, could be very helpful for understanding to what extent, in which way, RRI could be useful. Only when we understand that, only we start understanding RRI against the context, it will, RRI becomes less vague and much more concrete. This is my point.
Okay, are there any more questions? If not, we would like, oh, there's one final question. Would you think that maybe trying to make it through workshops in institutions or something similar could work?
Well, I believe that each organization is different. When I think about the concept of reflexivity on RRI anyhow, I imagine something like that. That is, reflexivity is not an obligation. And I don't see reflexivity as, a general attitude. I believe that reflexivity should be an institutional tool exactly just thought for understanding what is wrong or what is difficult in our research organization, in our researchers' work. Because I believe that otherwise we risk to make also of reflexivity a sort of an ethical principle. It's not an ethical principle. It's a way, in a context in which structures are weaker, to find out some solutions that are useful and applicable in our context, in our specific context. So reflexivity is a key point for understanding what is wrong and what is right and what we have to do. And workshops is absolutely one of the place, the institutional place in which the tendency towards reflexivity could be elicit. So I believe that is right, but the tools can be absolutely different. It depends upon also the organization. In any case, yes, I agree.
Yes, and in addition, I would like to say that our project, FIT4RRI, launched a call for training events that will take place this year. So stay tuned, because we'll be giving more information on this on our website that I'm going to recall here in the chat. So now we are evaluating the proposals, and these workshops will be given by other institutions, but will be happening in this year, 2019. Okay, so if we have no further questions, I would like to thank Helena and Luciano. Your presentations were very insightful, so thank you for
thank you
showing us a little bit more on the studies and on the projects. And I would also like to remind that the slides and the recording of this webinar will be made available to the participants and also in the website. So thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
See you.
Goodbye. Thank you.